Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, A Kitab Se Ek Moti, which in English means a pearl or gem from one book. Today I'm going to read a famous poem from a very famous and exceptional book written by Lillian Eichler Watson. I don't know, I'm not sure how the surname is pronounced. Eichler, Lillian Eichler Watson. So that's the name of the author, the writer. And this book, from which I'm going to read the poem for the day, has been an inspiration to many for several generations, and it inspired and guided our former president, the late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, as well. He mentions this in many of his talks and writings, and when he listed the three books that had influenced him the most, he mentions this book as well. The other two being the Thirukkural, which is a Tamil classic, and Man the Unknown by Dr. Alexis Carrel, I think. So I'll make a video on the book Man the Unknown as well. I've already made a few videos on the Tamil classic, the Thirukkural. So let me first show you how this book looks, and then I'll read the poem, the inspirational poem that I've selected for the day. So this is the book, Light from Many Lamps. Let me read the subtitle and some additional information here. A treasury of inspiration selected from the wisdom of the ages, the foundations from the past for happier, more confident living today and hope for the future. Hundreds of inspiring passages and quotations to share with your friends and family, edited and with commentary by Lillian Eichler Watson. The thing is, she has selected superb passages and passages that are very inspirational and can provide great solace in times of trouble, and also inspiration to transform our lives and become better human beings. So let me just read out some of the parts that this book has. So part 1 is happiness and the enjoyment of living. Part 2 is faith and inner calm. Part 3 is courage and the conquest of fear. So I'm going to read from this part 3. Part 4, confidence and achievement. Part 5, self-discipline and the development of character. Part 6, personality and relationship to others. Part 7, peace of heart and mind. Part 8, love and family life. Part 9, contentment in later years. And Part 10, hope for the future. So it covers almost the entire lifetime, as we have Shakespeare's, right? All the world's a stage, where he starts from the childhood stage, and he goes on to talk about the different stages, and then finally the stage of old age, or the state of being old. And it's a very nice description of how life proceeds and progresses. So let me show you which chapter I'm going to read from. William Ernest Henley, that's the title, and the subtitle is I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. So let me first read these introductory passages, and then I'll read the poem, and then I will read the author's commentary, and then I'll discuss this poem in some detail. So let me start. William Ernest Henley. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. The sun cut sharply across one corner of the room. The young man on the cot gazed at the brightness for a moment, then turned and faced the wall. He had been in the Edinburgh infirmary nearly 2 years now, Edinburgh, it's written Edinburgh. I'm sorry, Edinburgh, but the pronunciation is Edinburgh. Edinburgh. He had been in the Edinburgh infirmary nearly 2 years now, while Dr. Lister tried desperately to save his remaining foot. He had been subjected to so many operations he had lost count, 20 at least, in the last 20 months, but he was not beaten yet. He turned and faced the sun again and smiled. Words rang through his mind, sang through his mind, in the fell clutch of circumstance. I have not winced nor cried aloud. The man on the cot was William Ernest Henley. Few in this world are called upon to endure all he had in his brief 25 years. So he lived to be just 25 years of age. He had suffered since childhood from an agonizing tubercular infection of the bones, for which the usual Victorian remedy was amputation. Victorian, in a sense, the age of Queen Victoria. So that's called the Victorian era of the British Empire. One foot had already been removed, and the other was threatened. It was in the hope of avoiding a second amputation that he had submitted to this long, lonely siege on a hospital cot. Dr. Joseph Lister had a new method of treating infections, which he thought might save young Henley's foot and keep him from becoming a complete cripple. Illness, poverty, pain, and suffering, endless treatments and operations, testing human courage to its limits, that had been William Henley's life for almost as far back as he could remember. But I won't give up, he promised himself, smiling on his hospital cot. I won't give up, no matter what happens. I thank God for my unconquerable soul. Out of the pain and suffering of his own personal life, out of the courage and faith and fortitude with which he accepted the cruel blows of fate, came Invictus, one of the most emotionally powerful and uplifting poems ever written. So now let me read the poem. Some people say poem, so I think these are alternative pronunciations, poem, poem. I prefer the pronunciation poem. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Today, in English-speaking schools all over the world, children learn to memorize and recite this inspiring poem. Though they may not entirely understand the meaning of its words, they feel the unmistakable impact of its force and power. And to countless thousands of men and women faced with sorrow, pain, or fear, it has brought the courage to accept the blows of fate, to triumph over physical handicaps, and carry on with head unbowed. William Henley wrote many poems in his lifetime, but on the strength of Invictus alone, he has won immortality. For born of years of struggle, in the shadow of death, profoundly personal in its sources, arising literally out of night, Invictus has brought new hope and the will to live to many who nearly lost their way, many who were on the point of giving up. Invictus belongs to mankind, now and for all the ages to come. Of all the poems ever written, this one perhaps best typifies man's rich inspirational heritage. Invictus is a Latin for invincible, unconquered. Invincible, unconquered. So that's the passage that I have for today. So let's just briefly discuss what we can gather from this, what we can learn and apply to our lives, or apply in our lives. So William Henley had a very difficult life. He just lived for 25 years, and he had one of his legs amputated, and he was undergoing operation. He subjected himself to 20 surgeries in order to avoid the amputation of his second leg. So while he was in the hospital and while he was facing these troubles, physical and maybe mental and financial as well, because it mentions here that he had to face illness, poverty, pain, and suffering. So he was also facing pain, several surgeries, right? And during the Victorian times, so the medical advances may not have been as great as today. So he had to suffer a lot. But out of that suffering came a few lines that have inspired so many. So one thing we learned from this is that in our troubles, we can give something good to humanity. So when we face some problems and we have a way of handling those problems, then we can share that mental process with others, or any other process. So if we have learned of a method of handling trouble and pain and financial difficulty and physical infirmity or any other problem, and if we have found a way to handle that problem, then we can share that with the world. Not everyone can be a poet, not everyone can have these literary faculty or power. But then I have a different way of thinking on this. Anyone who wants to develop any kind of power can do so. But some of us don't have the time to develop our literary skills. So in that case, we can use other methods of inspiring others. We can make YouTube videos, or we can maybe draw some pictures or some painting, inspirational, or we can become sculptors or some form of art. That's what I'm trying to say. Some way of making permanent our ways of handling difficulties. So these can be through words, through pictures, through videos, through audio recordings, and any other method of recording your message. Or maybe you can just share that message with someone and ask them to come up with some kind of poem. And if you have the literary faculty and the ability to compose poems, you can write your own poem that will guide the generations to come. So that was about what we can do when we face pain and trouble. Now let's look at the poem itself. So I'm not going to kind of explain it line by line, because that usually takes away the beauty of a poem. But let me just read some of the lines, and then we'll just try to understand them in prose form, and then we'll see whether we can grasp what he's trying to say. So one thing he mentions again and again in this is that his soul is unconquerable, because outside circumstances don't have the power to conquer us. That's why we have so many examples of people who have had to face physical infirmity, but they succeeded in life despite that. So we have Nick Vujicic, right? I think the surname is pronounced Vujicic. I think before him there was a guy called John Fopp, if I'm not mistaken. He came to India as well. I planned to attend his seminar, but I didn't do that. But he came to India. I think he doesn't have arms. He was born without hands, without arms. John Fopp. And then we have Nick Vujicic, who has neither arms nor legs. And we had Stephen Hawking, the great scientist. He was confined to the wheelchair and still used to do his calculations in the mind, and used to use some kind of synthesizer, I think, to communicate with others. But he had to face a lot of physical trouble. So we have the soul that's unconquerable. It's not determined, or it cannot be subdued by the physical environment. So we have this unconquerable soul within us, and when the difficult circumstances surround us. So let me read this. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. So when difficulties try to subdue you and show you that your difficulty is greater than you, then you don't wince and you don't cry. You don't start expressing these negative emotions because of trouble. These can be positive, where crying can be positive sometimes when you lose your loved ones, and that's fine. Or that's something some people find uncontrollable. That's okay. But when problems attack us, physical difficulties and financial trouble, we should not wince or cry. We should face them boldly. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. So he admits that he's injured and he has been harmed or troubled by the circumstance, but he's still unbowed. He's still moving ahead, and has his head held high. And let me read the final two lines. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So fate won't master me. Fate won't be victorious against me because I am the master of my destiny, and I am the captain of my soul. That is, I direct the course of my life. Fate, chance, problems, difficulties, outside circumstances do not control my destiny. I think that's what the poem means in essence. Interpretations can differ, but one thing is, you just read the poem and you feel that inspiration kind of surging within you. I listened to it the first time, I think, when I heard this actor called, his name is Morgan Freeman. So he was reciting this. I think that's the first time I heard this poem being recited. But I knew about it from the book Think and Grow Rich. I think it's been mentioned in that book. Let me, if I can get a copy of that. Think and Grow Rich mentions it. I think I have it here. So this book mentions his poem, Think and Grow Rich. So I recommend this book. Read this. You'll come to know of Henley and what he meant when he said, I'm the captain of my soul. When he said, I'm the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. So that's it for today, friend. Thanks for watching this video.